Hello, everyone. We are here to talk about hierarchies in 15.9.2. Yes, hierarchies are finally GA in 15.9.2 of Clarity. What's new? We are officially releasing hierarchy functionality in our modern UX. No more beta tags. Customers that have been using hierarchies in beta for quite some time have provided several feedbacks and responses to us in regards to this functionality. Based on all those feedbacks, we've made the necessary changes, and we have essentially finally released hierarchy as a functionality available to our customers. So it's no longer beta, it is finally official. So the first thing you will see in regards to hierarchies when you go in is that the beta icon is being removed. It is now an official functionality, just like all the other Clarity functionality. Customers can now build their hierarchies based on project ideas and custom investment type. So let's look at the hierarchies going from configuration to building hierarchies to the different tabs available for hierarchies. The first is hierarchy is a studio object that can be configured. You can add custom attributes to hierarchies. Hierarchies can be associated to an OBS, organizational breakdown structure. So you can control the security if you want to, or just have your hierarchies organized by your BUs. Hierarchies layout can be defined using blueprints. So you have blueprint option available, and in the blueprint, you can define the properties page of the hierarchy. In that properties page, any of your custom attributes that you might have created can be included in the layout that you choose to do so. Hierarchy will also support channels. Just like other investments, you can define up to 15 channels, and those channels could be to either internal Clarity pages or external applications. Once I have configured Clarity, once I've configured hierarchy and I go into my hierarchy, I have two views. The first view is the tree view, and the second view is the grid view. So talking about the tree view, going from top to bottom, based on the blueprint that I've defined and the modules that I have in my blueprint, I will see the tabs in my hierarchy itself. So in this example, I'm looking at my hierarchy tree view as the default. I have some channels and I have the property page displayed. Then next I would see is the ability to import into my hierarchy from any of the existing investment types. And this would be either my project, idea, or custom investment type. So I can click on the import button and I can import the data into my hierarchies. Once I have built my hierarchy, I also have the option to export that hierarchy out into a PDF. And this is done using the export button listed right next to the import. As I build my hierarchy, the cards are displayed right here on the screen. And I can, of course, continue to add. I can have dependency between the parent and child just by dragging and dropping, or I can use the context sensitive menus within the card. As I build my card and my hierarchy, and the hierarchy becomes too big, I have the option to zoom in or out using the overview. The overview allows me to zoom in and out or move left, right within my hierarchy layout to focus on a specific part of the hierarchy. For each investment that I have pulled into my hierarchy, I can double click on that and open that investment for reviewing its specific data. I can also use the options to define the data I want to see in my hierarchy card. And finally, I have the option to save the layout based on the different options I have selected and the zoom in, zoom out. So I can save that as a view, and I can have multiple views defined. Talking about the options that shows me the different data, there are really 4 types of data that can be displayed within my card. The 4 data is the color that I can select for the card itself, that it'll be displayed next to my card icon. The next is the title, which would be the title of my card, followed by fields, which I'm allowed to select up to 4 fields that can be displayed as the data for that specific card. And then the last is the metrics, where I can pick up to 3 metrics that can be displayed within the card itself. Each card or each object type that I have included can have their own separate data elements that I can see. So in my example, I have selected some ideas, some projects, and some strategy to build my hierarchy. For each one of those, I have its own 4 sets of data elements that I want to display. And if I have different color types for different elements, I can use the legend to see all the different investment types I've included and the color, or what the color represent for each one of those investment types. Importing the data into my hierarchy can be done one of 2 ways. One, I can either click on the import button, which is right on the top. Selecting that button will give me the list of investment types that are available, which should be either idea, project, or any custom investment types. When I select one of those investment types, the grid layout for that investment type is displayed, where I can select and then click on Add to include the instances into my hierarchy. The second type that I can use to import the data is using the context-sensitive menu and selecting Import Children. In this case, I need at least one investment already added. And then I can do a right mouse click on that investment and say Import Children, which will then allow me to pick from one of the investment types, again, project, idea, or custom investment type. And selecting that will then give me the modal for the grid view for that investment itself. Within the tree view, I have the context-sensitive menu as well as multi-select option. What that means is that for all the different cards, I can do a right mouse click at any point or at any one of those cards. And doing the right mouse click based on that card, I will get a context-sensitive menu. The context-sensitive menu will display the data such as, will display the options such as either to hide the children or parent, or import children into it, or delete that specific card itself. So if I am in this example at the very top and I do a right mouse click, I will see the option to either hide my children or import additional children. If I am in the middle somewhere and I do a right mouse click, I'll see the option to import children, hide my children because this one has children underneath it, or hide my parent because this has a parent above it, or I can just delete this one itself. The option for delete or import is always displayed in the context sensitive menu. I also have the option to drag and select multiple card items. So in this example, I've just dragged and selected multiple card items, and that will then highlight all those selected card items. Once done so, my only option would be is to either delete them. I cannot use context sensitive menu because you cannot have all the options displayed in the context sensitive. So the context sensitive menu will only work if you have a single card selected. For multiple card selection, you can just delete all of them. Next, let's go into the grid view of the hierarchy. So once inside my hierarchy and I go into the grid view, going from left to right, I have the following options. I can add columns from any of the investment types that I have included in my hierarchy. So the column picker will display to me all the attributes from each investment types along with common investment and hierarchy that I can then include in my grid layout. I can add calculated attributes. I can add any attribute type except attachment and TSV. I can create and add metrics as defined in the hierarchy in my grid layout. I have the ability to collapse and expand my column picker list. So I can essentially, I would see a plus or a drop down arrow that allow me to expand or collapse my column picker. This makes it easy for me to find different attributes. I can even search for an attribute, and based on where it comes up, each attribute is organized nicely under the investment types. So in this example, you can see the strategy, the different attributes are listed within the strategy investment type. Once I've selected all the columns will then be displayed in the grid layout where the first row will be my investment type, followed by the selected attributes within that investment type. I can arrange those investments by dragging and dropping within my investment type. I can even pin any attribute within those investment types. So any pin attribute will appear to the left or right. I can do a group by any attribute except for the hierarchy metrics. The new hierarchy attribute for card parent and level is also available. So within the hierarchy, I have two attributes, one for parent and one for the level, that tells me that where a specific, this line item, where that card is in the hierarchy levels. And if it has a parent, then its parent name is also available to me. I have the ability to do multi-select and then remove the items from my list. I also have the flyout available, so I can select any one of these hierarchy items. I can then click on the detail flyout, and that'll then display to me the attributes that I have selected in the column picker as in my flyout by default. I can configure that flyout to add and remove any attributes that I want. The attributes that are selected will have their investment type listed within parentheses next to them. So in this example, idea category is coming from idea. So I have that its investment type listed within the parentheses. Same with the parent and the level is coming from hierarchy. So I have that listed as hierarchical next to it. The ones that are common across investments do not have their investment type populated because they are common across all the investments. Within hierarchy, I can define metrics. And the way the metrics works is, first, I need to have a new global right that will need to be assigned in order for me to be able to define metrics. This new global right is called the hierarchy manage metrics. Once I have this right, I can then define metrics within my hierarchy. There are two types of metrics that can be created. The first is calculation. Calculation is the ability for me to add, subtract, divide, multiply two numerical values. The next is the aggregation, which gives me the ability to aggregate data of children investment with or without my own data. Metrics can be shared between hierarchies. So if I've created a metrics in hierarchy 1, I can then use the same metrics in hierarchy 2, provided I have included the same investment type in hierarchy 2 that was used in hierarchy 1 and was used for defining the metrics itself. After creating the metrics can be viewed, renamed, or deleted, but you cannot modify that metrics. You will have to delete and recreate if you want to change how that metrics is being calculated. When hierarchy was in the beta tag, the metrics was available, but it had a single screen to define the aggregated and calculation. So I would go into my metrics, I would click on new, and then I can select whether I'm defining aggregation or calculation within the same screen. In 15.9.2, as part of the GA functionality, we've made it better for our users, where you now have two separate screens for defining your aggregation and calculation. So now you can go ahead and when you go into your metrics, you can see aggregation and calculation as two separate tabs. The list of aggregations are clearly defined under aggregation, and same for calculation, which was not the case in the past because both aggregation and calculation were listed at one, which would have caused confusion. When defining an aggregation, you can give the name for that aggregation, and then you can define which attribute should that aggregation happen on, and the scope, which should be either children only or children and self. And once you've defined that aggregation, you can click on the edit button and you can see what that aggregation is, as well as rename it if you want to. Again, something that was not possible in the past, in the beta release. Same applies for calculation. I can click on new and I can then give my calculation a name, and I can define the two metrics, metric 1 and metric 2, with the operator as to I want to do add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And then if I have created a calculation metric, I can edit it by going in, changing the name, or looking at the predefined metric calculation, which is the metric 1, metric 2, along with its operator. Once I've defined the aggregation, I can include the aggregated data based on the common investment or object specific in my card option. Aggregation scope can be only aggregated either the children's data or children along with self. Aggregation metric can be viewed in cards as well as in the grid view of my hierarchy. Specific object metric from other hierarchy will only be available to me as long as I've selected at least one object instance of that investment type in my hierarchy. Talking about calculation metrics, the ability to build custom calculation based on two attributes of the same object is available to me. So I can take two attributes of the same object and try to do some calculation using that. Calculation metrics can be displayed in card metrics for that object. So if once I have built the calculation, I can take that calculation metrics and either include it in my tree view, or I can include it in my grid layout. The aggregation metrics can be used in building a calculation metric. So if I've built an aggregation to aggregate the data either based on my children or myself and the children, I can take that aggregated value and then include it in building a calculation. If I've built a calculation metrics in other hierarchy, I can use the same in a new hierarchy, provided I include at least one object instance of that calculation metric. Hierarchies also have security, so hierarchies can be secured using global instance or OBS rights. Hierarchy attributes can also, in addition, be secured using field level security. And if you have defined field level security for other investment types, then hierarchies will respect that. The object specific attribute secured by defining field level security for the respective object will be hidden in hierarchy. And if you have the abstract object attributes, such as the investment attributes, which is the data that is common across multiple investment types, so investment level attributes, or financial attributes, then those can be secured using the field level security and selecting the abstract object. I will cover this a little bit more in detail during the demo. The security, just to cover a little bit more in regards to how it gets displayed. So for the field level security, if I have secured the investment level attributes using the abstract object type, then those data are controlled within the common investment layout of my grid. If I've secured any object specific attributes, in this example, idea, and I've secured the idea category and idea type, then those will be controlled in the idea section of my hierarchy grid. Same for the project. If I've secured project specific attributes, then those would be controlled in the project grid. The common investment grid is referred to as the abstract object. That means it is something that's shared between different investment types within Clarity. All right, so with that, let's look at hierarchies in action. All right, so I'm here in Clarity 15.9.2. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to look at my hierarchy in the studio configuration. So within hierarchy itself, the first thing is I'm going to go look at my OBS. And I have a security OBS where I can see that hierarchy can be included as an associated object. This allows me to control the or tie hierarchies to OBS and secure them using OBS level security. Next, I'm going to go look at my objects, and I can see hierarchy is an object that is available in Studio for me to configure. I can look at the attributes, and I have a custom attribute that is created for my hierarchy, as well as the OBS secure rights. So I can secure this using OBS. Next, I'm going to go look at my modern UX where I can configure my hierarchy using Blueprint. So if I go into my administration in modern UX, I can look at hierarchy. I have a default hierarchy defined or a blueprint defined for hierarchies, where within the properties, I have different attributes that I've included in my properties. I can go into the module and I can now configure the layout as to how the hierarchy should be displayed. The first is my investment. This module allows me to see the hierarchy tree view and hierarchy grid view. Then I have my channel to the overdue risk for all risks that are overdue for every investment included in my hierarchy. And then last, I have just the properties. So I can control the layout however I want. I can go into the edit mode, change this layout, or remove any one of these, or add a new channel to my hierarchy. Now that I've done the configuration, let's go in and look at my hierarchy itself. So within the hierarchies, I have the option to create a new hierarchy or edit existing one. And let's first start by creating a new one just to see how it'll function. So I'm going to create a new one. When I go inside, it's using my default blueprint that I just showed, which has the same 3 tabs: the investment, the channel, and then my properties layout with the different fields. To then build my hierarchy, I can click on import, and I can uh, essentially select which investment type I want to build. So in this case, let's just pick the innovation at scale. So I can select that from my list. That gets added. Now that I have built this, I want to build children underneath it, and I can easily do that by doing a right mouse click and say import children. And in this case, then I'm going to pick ideas. I'm going to select just few ideas inside of it, click on add. Of course, in this case, I just selected my favorite ones, but if I wanted to pick any other, I have the option to filter for specific criteria-based idea. Once I've done so, I can click on add, and then the children are automatically added. As I'm adding, I can see in the review options, I have idea where I can then pick the 4 different information I wanted to see with for my idea, and the same goes for strategy. So those are the only 2 options I can configure, the 4 data elements. And next, I want to include more children for my cloud computing. In this case, I'm going to add some projects. Let's use my default views. Again, all the views that are available here are the views that have been defined for my project list layout. I can pick a few more in this case. I can add that. And then you can easily see the children's are easily added for it. If I want to change any of the hierarchy, I can say, well, the architecture is really under my bundle mobile devices. I can easily drag and drop from the child to the new parent, and it changes that layout. I have the option to use the right mouse context sensitive menu. So I just did a right mouse, and I can see this card only has a parent. So I can either import children or hide its parent. The middle layer will have the option to either import children, hide children, which will hide all of these, or hide the parent. If I hide the parent, then its parent and all the other children's will be hidden. So let's do that. So now I'm only focused on my cloud computing and its 3 projects. Once I'm done, I can expand all and everything comes back. And if I go to the top level, I can only hide its children, which then hides everything else. I can, of course, also use the icon right underneath it to expand and see that. Because I, along with ideas, included some projects, if I go back to my view option, now you would see that I have the option to define the 4 data elements for my project also along with strategy and idea. Right? Let's go into a pre-built where we can see the different data elements. I'm going to go into my medical center top-down planning. First, let's look at its preview. So this is pre-built. You can see there are different colors. I can zoom in for specific data elements. There are different data elements. If I want to confirm or validate which all elements have been or investment types have been included in my hierarchy, I can use the legend. So if I just click on the legend, I can see there are 4 different investment types. Contracts, medical center, medical equipment, and strategy are the 4 different investment types that are included. And I can see the colors, what these colors represent. So essentially for a contract, green will be active and blue will be requested and so on. So I can see based on the different colors. I can also go look at my options. And in this case, because I had 4 different investment types, contracts being the first, the elements for contract is displayed with the color based on work status. The title is the name itself, and then the 3 fields in this case, and the metrics is only the plan cost. Whereas for the medical center, I can see different fields, and same for the other investment types. So I can control each one of those. Next, let's look at just the overview itself. So as you can see, in this case, because my my hierarchy is going left to right on the screen, I can easily focus on different parts by moving the focus area in the overview. Within my tree view, I can define metrics or I can manage them, provided I have the new access right. Clicking on the manage metrics, I have now the 2 tabs. The first is the aggregation and the second is calculation. I see that there are 2 predefined aggregation. And if I wanted to see what exactly is it aggregating, I can click on the edit button and it tells me that it is aggregated on the plan benefit and the self and children is the scope, which is the same data that I can see right here in the main page itself. So editing allows me to change the data as well as see the same details. I can do the same for calculation, where on the main page itself, I can see the name. I can see the 2 attributes that are being used for calculation and its operator. And if I want to change the name, I can click on the edit view and I can change the name. To build a new aggregation, it's just as simple as clicking on the new metric button. I can give it a new name for my aggregation. And I'm just going to pick the plan cost only for my children. So that's going to be my new aggregation. Once I do that, it gets created and it's now available right here. Similarly, if I want to build a new calculation to find out if any of my investment I am losing money, I can do that by building a matrix to say, give me I can calculate the cost by saying, find me the total benefit. Or in fact, I'll do reverse. I'll find the, where is it? Plan benefit. And I want to subtract that from my plan cost. And now I have a new calculation matrix that is created. I can include these in any of my metrics. So based on if I've created the metrics for a specific object itself, then I would see those metrics available for me to include in the card. But let's go look at now next my grid layout. So for the grid layout, the way the order is going to be, I have the custom investment first. where the list of all the investments along with the any attributes that are shared across these investments will be listed. Hierarchy is next, where I can see any of the hierarchy attributes followed by any other investment types and their respective attributes that can be displayed. I can use the column picker, and in here I have the ability to collapse all the investment types attributes in a single click. So I can, by collapsing that, I can see all the different investment types. I can expand individual ones. So I have my hierarchy, and within the hierarchy, I have all the different attributes as well as my metrics. So loss was one that I just created. I can click on it and it automatically gets added to my hierarchy investment type. I can search if I'm not sure where a specific attribute might be. I can just start typing, and roll up benefit and roll up cost are two attributes within hierarchy. Just by typing that, it appears within my list, which is easy to find attributes across different investments. And it's easy to collapse and expand and see their respective data. And now with this, based on my calculation metrics, I can easily see which investment, which quite a few of them are at loss. I can also see the data for some of these using the flyout, which is by clicking on the individual investment. I can click on details and I can see all the respective information. The attributes that are coming from the common investment, which means they are shared across different investments, those attributes are listed without their investment types, whereas the attributes that are specific to an investment types are listed along with the investment type listed within the brackets. So in this case, hierarchy has the level, whereas contracts has categories. I can configure this flyout and add and remove any field, just like any other common grid component functionality. Right, so next I'm going to go back out and I'm going to look at my IT rollout hierarchy. And in here, when I look at it, I want to see my hierarchy and see for my IT rollout that we are working on, if there are any overdue risk. And I can do that by just essentially going into the channel for the overdue risk. Clicking on that will give me the list of all the risks that are overdue. So I can see there are several risks that are based on their calculated risk factor are ranked accordingly, and it tells me which investment these risks are overdue in. So I now have a channel to see the different risk. Again, this is not out of the box. This is something I configured for my environment to have a portlet, which is then being used or referenced via channel in my hierarchy. So this is created for demo purpose only. And then finally, using my properties, I can see the different strategies and the attributes that are included in the properties. All right, next, let's look at the field level security for hierarchy. So for my hierarchy itself, I can define attribute security, which is done so by going into administration of my modern UX. I can go into attributes, and here I can filter for my hierarchy attributes. So let's first do that. So let's go find for my hierarchy. And I can see all the attributes. So if I want to secure strategy, I can easily do so by going in here and then essentially securing that specific attribute itself. If I have a object specific attribute that are secured, then hierarchy will automatically respect that and will not display that. If I want to secure a data element, an attribute that is shared across multiple investment types, which we refer to as elements in the abstract object, then I would have to do so by going into abstract object. And in this case, there are only two abstract objects at the time, which is investment and financials. These are the only two abstract objects, and their elements are then listed right here. Once you select the abstract object, all those investment types that are shared across will be listed right here. Just for a point of reference, the elements that are in the abstract object are also listed within the object type. And to explain that, let's just remove the abstract type. That means I'm going to look at all abstracts. Let's remove the object type also, and let's just look at for a specific attribute itself. So here I have filtered for planned cost. Planned cost is a financial attribute that is available in projects. It is available in idea, my custom investment types. So it's available in each one of those. Let's look just for that planned cost itself rather than contains. Okay. All right. If I want planned cost to be secured within my hierarchy, then I have to make sure that I secure this in the abstract object, which would be planned cost is financials. I have to secure it in the abstract object of financials. So right here, planned cost financials, I will have to secure it right here if I want this data element to be secured in my hierarchy. If I want this data element to be secured within my project object itself, then I want to secure it right here in my project object. So the difference between the two is by securing at the object level, I'm securing that attribute that is shared across different investment types just for that one object. So plan cost can be secured just for this project, but I can see the plan cost of strategy. I can see the plan cost of contracts, medical centers, and so on. So I have the control to see or secure just that object level attribute. If I want it secured such that hierarchy where I can take different investment types and pull in my data, I don't want anybody to see my project plan cost, then I should secure that at the abstract level, making sure that building hierarchy, the plan cost will not be displayed just because I can include all the different investment types. Okay, so it is important to understand the abstract object, which means securing the data within the hierarchy, or just the object level attribute, securing the data within that individual object. Okay, so now to go back and let's secure my attributes, the financial attributes for my hierarchy itself. And in this case, let's secure my 3 financial attributes. So I am going to, because I want to secure the data in my hierarchy, I'm going to first say I want to secure that in my abstract object. And I want to secure it for my financials because I want to secure my plan cost, my plan operating cost and my plan benefit. So my plan benefit, I want to secure that. My plan capital cost, I want to secure that. And my plan operating cost, I want to secure that. I'm going to grant access so that as an administrator or a financial manager, I can see this data, but anybody outside of that group should not be able to view or edit that data. So now that this is secured, let's go back to my hierarchy. And let's go into my IT rollout, which is where I've defined that data. When I zoom in, I can see the plan capital, plan operating, as well as the plan benefits. I can see all the financial numbers because I am in the financial manager group. Now I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in as a user that does not have access to view those financial numbers. I'm going to go into my hierarchy. I'm going to go back into the IT rollout. And when I zoom in, notice that those numbers have disappeared from my tree view. The same will apply by going into my grid layout, and those financial numbers have no longer been displayed in my grid view. That concludes my demo for the hierarchies.